Hello. So I'm very pleased to be speaking today to Natalie Trice, who is a bit of a rock star in the PR world, multi-talented. She's got her own clients as well as being an award-winning coach and trainer. So she's dealing with her own clients as well as all of her training clients. So you've got a really good overview of lots of different businesses and how they're working with their social media as part of their campaigns. So welcome, Natalie.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the lovely introduction.
Yeah, so Social Media Genius Week, we're speaking to lots of different people and getting their views on how brands are using social media, what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong, what are all the good things that are coming out of it in these strange COVID economic meltdown, social unrest times.
Yes.
So, what do you think about social media as a force for good? Do you think it can be that?
I do. So yeah, I think that it's I think that if we can kind of strip away some of the noise at the moment, and sometimes this tendency to have very knee-jerk reactions to what's happening around us, and to just stop and think before what we post, that can be actually quite powerful, because obviously there has been all of 2020. There's been so much happening, so many emotive things, and even personally, I found social media, and I love social media, I found it to become even noisier than normal. And I think that when it works well, it's hugely powerful, and I've seen it myself with work that I've done. But I do think that we do need to be considered about how we use it and the impact that it can have on other people without actually realising. And I'm quite, I'm quite passionate about that, not only just as working in PR, but also I've got two sons, and I can see the impact that could potentially have when they get a little bit older, and we're kind of getting to that stage. So I do think that I always say to clients, when it's out there, it's out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And it can be a difficult line to tread, because the whole point of social media is that there is that spontaneity, and that, it's that fast thing. But, when people do something wrong, boy, can it go wrong. And especially if they're not swift to apologise and handling the apology bit in a graceful manner, it can really go wrong. So amongst the people that you're working with, have they changed how they're working, under this sort of lockdown time? Are their businesses pivoting? Are they sort of being more supportive to their community and
yes.
beyond?
Yeah, so I work with Hannah Martin, who is the founder of Talented Ladies Club.
All right.
So it's an online platform that essentially supports mothers working so that they can find a sustainable business and create the life they want. And so she created a course about creating courses that actually has been hugely successful, because I think, but again, it was a measured approach of, that first week of lockdown, with a lot of us, I mean, personally, I lost 80% of my work when it first happened, the first day. It was almost like, okay, anyone staying? Anyone? And that, I think that impact, it was almost like, well, everything's just imploding.
Yeah.
And she did step back. I also worked with a coach trainer, Ruth Cudsley, and again, she stepped back to look at actually, what is it that people need? And I
Right.
think that also has quite a, it has quite a impact on social media. If you've got that platform, it's a two-way thing. So it is about engagement. It is about conversations and building relationships. And I think sometimes that can be missed. It's almost like
Oh,
I'm just going to put
absolutely.
my
I mean,
two
I
pennies worth in for the sake of it without actually thinking, what value am I adding, or what help am I bringing?
yeah, I do think that a lot of brands, or certainly I've come across lots of companies now that want all their tweets pre-approved.
Mm-hmm.
So, they're all written out and approved, and it's like, okay, that's fine for some evergreen content. But that's really taking away so much from what social media should be. And when you see brands that are really sort of getting it right, and there was the thing that got a lot of publicity the other day with Yorkshire tea, and then I think it was it PG Tips or Typhoon, another big tea brand, kind of pitched in support, and it all seemed very spontaneous and absolutely the right thing, and from in a purely PR point of view, is massively beneficial, because that then got picked up by all the nationals, and they got a huge amount of positive coverage out of that. In fact, I have seen quite a lot of coverage, PR coverage from small businesses that have suddenly whipped up a website and got social media going, and have got community delivering things to people that are shielding, and that I think is the beauty of it, that if it's done right. I think the main thing is having that, being tuned in to what's going on, as you say. What do people actually want? What do they need? And not just sort of broadcasting your stuff with an approved agenda that was discussed in a meeting 2 months ago. That's not. And I think, again, it comes down to, I think it has improved a lot over the years, but the quality of the people actually doing the social media, because often it was sort of, we'll just get someone to do it. Some kind of part-time person can do a bit of tweeting. Do you know what I mean? And it's really so much more than that.
Yeah, it is a lot more than that. And I think it's, I mean, authentic is a word that is bandied around at the moment, but it's true, because I think, people are pretty savvy. People are savvy when it comes to social media, and they know whether something's been trotted off because it's the company line, or whether actually, do they really mean it? Is that what they're really saying and communicating? And how does that fit with, the rest of their brand and what they're telling the world? Because if all of a sudden there's something that's very contrived, people they're gonna see that, and it's the case. And I think there's also that what I noticed at the beginning of this. I mean, I don't personally schedule social media at all, because I like the spontaneity, and part of my job is being able to respond to the news agenda and what's happening around me. And what I did notice at the beginning of lockdown was that a lot of content that had been scheduled was going out, and it didn't fit. And I'd be seeing things and thinking, oh, that is really, and I had a lot of, for my clients, I had a lot of media coverage that was planned that was then pulled because the content was changing. So I think you need to be extremely mindful. And as you say, it's not just a bit of tweeting, it is part of an overall strategy. And if you get it wrong, you can correct it, but then it has to be heartfelt and it has to be sincere.
Absolutely.
And I think it's almost, I don't know, almost the beauty of being a small business or one person is that you've got a lot of control. So sometimes you see these things with the multinationals, very big companies, and stuff can be quite kind of faceless a little bit.
Yeah.
And how much do you really mean that? Because it's a bank. it's a really nice advert, but you know, it's really nice sentiment, but how much of it is actually true and meaningful?
Yeah,
And I
there can
think
be
stuff can,
a big disconnect between
yeah,
what they're saying
absolutely,
and what actually
absolutely.
happens.
And I think, yeah, it's a, you know, I think one of the things, and I know we talked about this earlier, one of the things that I really noticed was the impact of Caroline Flack and Be Kind.
Yeah.
And what I've noticed is that people are not being kind at the moment. And there's a lot of, and I think we have to be very, very considerate as individuals or as business owners in the way that we use social media, because of the impact that it can have on people. And just realizing at the moment how vulnerable some people are, and everyone's situation is different, and there's a huge amount of judgment. And I think social media has certainly a big part to play with that, especially when people are isolated, they're at home, kids are at home not with their friends, teenagers. So I think there is a big social responsibility when it comes to social media.
Yeah. And from a sort of purely commercial point of view, how do you see the connection between that genuine message that some brands do just seem to get it right? You know, they do seem to say they do live their values. I mean, I think it's probably easier for the smaller brands to do that. But you know, do you think that is a permanent change, that this sort of weird period in time, and you know, we're still in it? I mean, it's sort of easing a little bit, but we don't know whether it's going to come back again. You know, whether it is sort of a real sea change in how people use social media. Or do you think everyone's just going to forget about it and just flip back to...
I would hope not. I think, I mean, certainly when I'm teaching and someone said, you know, at the beginning, and we were talking about people pivoting and the kind of very fast pace that people tried to adapt to something that we didn't really understand. And my whole thing was, it sounds very basic, but actually just be decent. And I think there's something to be said to that with everything. It's you know, if you're doing something to actually help the situation or to do something positive, that's great, and talk about it. But if you're really capitalizing on what's going on, and that's obvious, but you're hiding it, that's a whole different thing. And so I do think that, you know, there needs to be a lot more kind of consideration and responsibility taken for what's being put out there, because we are going to see, you know, we're already seeing the knock-off on with redundancies, loss of work, that there's so many things that are happening out there that you would like to think that changes will happen. And it's not just, okay, we're okay, and we're not going to worry about anyone else.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is a big divide between people that are doing okay in this time. You know, maybe they're furloughed and maybe their company is topping up the other 20% as well. So pretty much they're on the same money, so you know, they're kind of jogging along, and you know, it's all a bit weird and children aren't at school, but you know, life is okay. And then there are other people that for whatever reason aren't eligible for any of the government schemes, and frankly are staring into the abyss. You know, businesses, you know, long-standing businesses that are you know, they've just had the rug pulled from under them. So I think this time is very important. What was that you just said? Just be decent.
Just be decent.
I think that could be a hashtag.
But that's a big, you know, that's a big thing for me personally. It's kind of, you know, although I lost most of my work, I didn't pivot straight away. It took me time to think, okay, how am I going to adjust? My husband's also self-employed. We fell through the cracks. This thing that you can never be too comfortable where you are because you don't know what's coming. And I think a really interesting thing I saw, I think I'm not a big football fan, my son is, but Marcus Rashford, that was a very impactful campaign. I'm sure there were other people behind him, but he was very, very sincere. When you saw him talking on BBC Breakfast, he did a couple of interviews, and I thought he was hugely humble, and he did an amazing thing. And the other thing that really struck me is that they interviewed a couple of mothers online talking about the impact of not having these vouchers. One of the women, they'd been fine. New Year's Eve this year, everything had been fine. COVID came along, she lost her job, she doesn't know how she's going to feed her kids. That this has had such a huge impact, and I do think that being deep, this is going to have massive consequences, and you do need to be considerate of what's going on with other people and non-judgmental, because we don't always I think the other thing with social media is that what one presents online may not be what's really going on.
Yeah, I mean, I have noticed that, because there was always that thing that people would, there'd be pictures of people in unfeasibly glossy shots, with yachts and beaches and, cocktails, and isn't life all peachy? I think a lot of that, obviously that's kind of gone, because it's really not appropriate at the moment, apart from the fact, we just can't do those sort of things. If people just don't want to know about it, they're just not interested. So I think people have become a lot more genuine. So, I mean, I absolutely love it. I'm involved with some, financial PR, and I sort of keep an eye on the on some of the things that's going on there. And it's great that you get these sort of really big cheese Wall Street people that are doing their Zoom call at home, with the kids making a racket in the background, or a dog barging in, and I love it. It just makes it seem so much more human.
Yeah. There's a very real element about it, and I think people are able to connect with people in a different way. I always think it's a bit like Rightmove, because you're in, we're talking and you're in your kitchen, I'm in my office. It's very real. This is the reality of the situation. It's not this kind of very vacuous way that people were living before. And I'm not saying it's not going to go back to it, because I'm sure that it will. And I still see, especially on Instagram, influencers in their bikinis, and I'm just like, how does that fit with now? How is that relevant?
But I think a lot of those influencers will be less influential, because I don't think, the brands want to attach themselves to that kind of thing. I think it has become a lot more genuine, and I'm hoping that is a more, the good things about social media will overcome the bad.
And there are lots of good things. There's, I live in a village in Devon, in kind of the middle of nowhere, and even this morning my village shop, there was a queue to get into it, and usually it's kind of tumbleweed before this, so there is that happening. The pharmacy delivers things to people. There's a Facebook group. There's a lot of elderly people here, so you can see there are a lot of really positive things happening and connections being made. That had we not had social media, this would be a very different situation. Even like my grandma, who's in her late 80s, so she's been on her own now because of her age, but she's on Facebook on her iPad.
Oh, bless her.
So she can keep connected with people,
Yeah.
and
It makes a huge
does
difference.
make a difference. And I think that's why that's why I like social media. And so one of my sons was very poorly when he was younger, and I ended up writing a book and setting up a charity, and now the Facebook community's got like 3,000 people around the world who have the supports that I didn't when I was told my child had something wrong with him.
Yeah.
And so when you're in hospital in the middle of the night on your own and your baby's crying and everyone else is asleep, there's someone in Australia who's awake. That, so
Yeah.
for me, there's a huge amount of connection and community on social media that I think is hugely valuable. And it's like anything, there'll always be someone that's not decent. There's always that one situation. But I think if we can harness,
But I do think that those brands and whatever sort of will be punished for that, by the mighty consumer.
Yeah.
I do feel that there is this massive trend towards community, and just the way that the world is going, and because of the virus, things will change, and obviously we've got a sort of massive economic shock coming, and as well as the beauty of the globalism of social media, which I love too, and I've got friends all over the world. It is that like really, really local stuff which works just as well. So I think social media has come into its own, and I think the brands do just need to take a good hard look at what they're doing, and really tune into this. So
yeah, I think it's more of it's more of not being a logo and kind of meaningless strap lines, and actually having some depth and some connection. And it will be those brands that, if they say there's a recession coming, people are going to purchase from the brands where they actually have some proper connections, you would hope, to see those changes and to see, what fits with me. How do I feel about how this business operates?
And I think people are keen to support businesses that they do feel a connection with. So like your village shop, rather than doing your online order with Tesco. I mean, in reality, the two are going to sit side by side, because if you've got a family,
you can't do everything, but you can.
But it'll bring more of a balance, I think. So that's really interesting. So well, it's been great talking to you, Natalie.
Oh, you too.
I do think we need to make "just be decent" into a hashtag as well. I think that's really the essence of it. So
it is, isn't it?
It absolutely is. So thank you so much for spending time.
You.
And hope you and your family stay well.
You too.
And we'll speak soon.
Lovely. Thanks ever so much.
Bye, Natalie.
Bye. Thank you.